And even just keeping them off our clothing, it would be pretty unhelpful if we got them covered in radioactive dust, particularly as the town we're staying in has no water. The local scientist makes this trip every week to take soil samples. He goes with no protective clothing and he has no Geiger counter. But this doesn't protect from radiation. Yeah. All this protects from is the dust. All right.
This is another of the sites over here. I'm not too worried about this one. It's well buried, the radioactive waste. The one we're interested in is further around the corner. So there's a guy here who's pushing his car right next to the waste dump. Yes, problem.
The Soviets buried radioactive waste and uranium in pits in this earthquake-prone area. Our guide said there were several areas on the pits where radiation levels spiked up to more than 1,000 times normal levels. We tried to avoid them, but nowhere was entirely safe.
Okay, we're 0.7, so that's about 7 times normal radiation levels. And we've barely explored this site. This is just the first rocks we've got to. It's still going up. But we can see here there's animal dropping, so cattle are allowed to graze here. There's quite a lot of hoof prints everywhere as well. This is another great concern for the people in the area. And the food they're eating may well be contaminated as well. In another field. Well, look at this. We're just passing back through another field. People are already digging this up. .64. And this isn't a hole that someone's dug. Yeah. It's still going up, and the longer we hold it there, it's now 0.72, 0.86. No. 0.9, 1.04, so that's 10 times normal background radiation. That's not very good. You see, you've got people living right next to a radioactive site. This is 10 times, and this was just from holding it there for a few seconds. 10 times background radiation levels. We've left the waste dumps up there, and we're now going back to the cars, but really all around us there's dust, there's local people, and there's no security whatsoever. We've got more than a dozen highly radioactive sites here that even the Kyrgyzstan government is worried about. And the officials were always a bit hazy about whether there was any security or not, but now we get here, we see there's absolutely no security at all. There's not a part-time guard, there's not a full-time guard, there's not fencing, there's not barbed wire, there's nothing. And we were just walking through one of those sites and we can see somebody's been digging it up.
Is there really no water in town?
Yeah, there's no water because it's been raining for a few days, and now the river from which Hosh gets its drinking water is dirty. So they're gonna wait for a couple of days for the river for water in the river to get cleaner.
Okay. So there's no drinking water?
There is no drinking water.
With no water available, we were forced to order champagne.
It's Soviet champagne. Even though the Soviet Union collapsed 12 years ago, we're still drinking Soviet champagne.
Whoa!
I didn't do a thing.
This champagne shows the power of Soviet Union, military power.
The Kyrgyz army still has the uniforms and discipline of its former Soviet bosses, and a decade after independence, the relationship between the two armed forces has once again become intertwined. Yesterday we went to see an American military base in Kyrgyzstan, and today, again, something I never thought we'd be allowed to do or see. We're here on a Kyrgyz military base that is about to become, it seems, a Russian base, which should make Kyrgyzstan the only country in the world to have an American and a Russian military base on its land. I mean, they were Russians. Those were Russians. They had Russian badges on their uniforms. This is the new great game. As well as having the American military here, the Kyrgyz have let the Russians back in as part of a collective security agreement. The Russians want to protect what they still see as their southern border from incursions by Al-Qaeda supporters. This plane here, are they Russian?
Yeah, Russian.
Right. The fighter plane, the fighter jets that we saw,
They're Kyrgyz.
they're Kyrgyz. Right, okay. Well, maybe we should stop here and can we just do a little... He doesn't want us to film here.
Yeah, they're Russian planes, so we can just pass through.
Alright, so we can just pass by.
Yeah, pass by.
So what we've got here are some Russian cargo planes that are already seem to be unloading. It's what looks like Russian contractors over here and engineers who are measuring up some areas of the airport, clearly for their own uses. The head of the base was none too pleased about our presence, and our guide from the Ministry of Defence had to persuade him to let us stay. But there was none of the charm offensive here that we'd experienced from the Americans. What proportion of the Kyrgyz Air Force is based here?
Сколько человек будет с российской стороны, правильно?
As we agreed, you just film it. We don't
Мы
talk.
солдат.
No comments from them. Okay, all right. The Russians are worried that the Americans are getting too much power and influence in the region, and the Russians want to secure their own power. So they're trying to make a comeback. When the base commander finally left, our Kyrgyz colonel explained why there is now a Russian and an American base in Kyrgyzstan.
Базы Ганси своя задача. Это антитеррористическая, правильно?
The American base has a clear purpose: to fight terrorism. It's part of the anti-terrorism coalition. But the Russian base is going to secure our southern borders, so Islamic incursions will never happen again.
Вот этих баткинских событий у нас больше не повторится.
And which do you think the Kyrgyz people prefer? Do they prefer the Russians or the Americans?
Well, I think Kyrgyz still trust Russians more than Americans.
Yeah.
But Americans are the ones who pay a lot of money. Like they, use a lot of services. Oh, what is that? Look at that. Look at
Yeah, can we stop?
Last year we did have, demonstrations, protests organized by the opposition.
Yeah.
And Kyrgyzstan must be the only country in the region where, where opposition gatherings were allowed.
Can we ask this lady here what this is for? She doesn't know either. Okay, what about this girl here? Does she know what it's about? Does anybody know what they're here for? These ladies here, no?
Yeah, it's some sort of celebration of the anniversary of Bishkek, 125th.
Ah, so it's not a political demonstration at all. It's a celebration of Bishkek's birthday, basically.